All right, welcome everyone. It's 6:41 on February 5th. This is a regular meeting of the Arlington City Council. I'm Mayor Rich Nagel. I'll be presiding at the meeting. And if you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and welcome again, everyone. This time we'll have the roll call. Councilmember Hattlestead. Here. Councilmember Yashewski. Here. Councilmember Batcher. Here. Councilmember Highland. Hi. Councilmember Cowell. Here. All council members present. Kirk Mink and Kirby Weckworth. All right, the agenda, approve the agenda and agenda additions. There are some changes, I believe.
Mr. Chair, if we could go ahead and remove item 5B, Julie and Joe Winter, who are unable to join us this evening. Okay. And then also, if flipping over to the second side, under reports of officers, boards, and committees, if we could remove item B, recap of the January 25th, 2018 Fire and Ambulance Funding Presentation to the townships in Green Isle. That is near completion, but has a few last minute changes that need to be made. So we would plan on having that presented at the second meeting coming up here in February.
Alrighty. So with those changes in mind, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion to approve the agenda made by Councilmember Highland, second by Councilmember Yashewski. And that motion was to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed no. Motion carried. Moving on to the consent agenda. This evening, the consent agenda consists of the following. Item A, approval of the January 16th, 2018 regular meeting minutes. Item B, approval of the January 29th, 2018 special meeting minutes. Item C, approval of the bills. And then item D, personnel agenda, which consists of the accepting the resignation of Jonathan Hazelwood from Planning and Zoning Committee due to meeting conflicts. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion by Councilmember Cowell, second by Councilmember Hattlestead to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed no. Motion carried. All right, there are no public hearings this evening, so we'll move on to citizens addressing the council. I believe the Myers would like to address the council, and I don't know who's the spokesman for the group, but Dave, you want to come up and use the microphone at the desk there? And just so you know, we allow 5 minutes for your presentation, so.
We're male council members. We're here tonight. My mother's house at 408 Circle Lane. Last summer, she endured a lot of agony with unlicensed automobiles in the driveway next to her. Demolition cars is what they were. Pounding, banging, just all around eyesore. And with doing a little research on your nuisance ordinance, I see you do have an ordinance for unlicensed motor vehicles in the driveway, backyard, or wherever. And we're just here tonight asking that it be enforced if it happens again this summer.
Okay.
I don't know, she did send in some pictures. I don't know if you've seen any of them.
Did you
but
get some pictures from her?
I don't know if I did receive any.
okay.
They're on your computer.
Okay.
Vicky put them on last summer.
Oh,
Oh, she did?
They're
That was before he got here.
You're good.
Apparently it's in a complaint file that I have with the police department, so
Okay,
I don't know if you have access to that or not.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
It could be on.
Was that the issues that you've been dealing with, Ramona, was that more in the summer months? I mean,
Yes.
not recently as much?
No, not
So
now,
it's summer
not
months.
until summer comes.
Okay, all right.
Till June is when.
Right shortly in the middle of August, they went away,
Okay,
so we're just trying to avoid it happening again this
Sure.
summer.
good idea. All right.
Had you talked to the parties involved at all, or mentioned to them they were being noisy?
Huh,
I,
I didn't personally, but I think my mother and my brother have said stuff to him. He doesn't listen.
huh, okay.
and I did inquire with the police department, and I was told that they had probably received about a handful of calls this last summer on
Okay.
that issue, so.
You'll have to bear with us, we've had some changes in our police department, and things are settling down now. We have a new police chief and a new patrolman, and we'll be hiring a third police officer, so we'll make sure that they're aware of what's been going on.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
All right, announcements.
If it continues.
First announcement is just that city offices will be closed on Monday, February 19th for the President's Day holiday. With that in mind, the council meeting that is typically scheduled for the 19th will be pushed back to Tuesday, February 20th at 6:30 p.m. Third item is just announcement that the Darwin Mathwig Award will be given at the Arlington Lions Fish Fry on February 23rd at 5 p.m. if anybody's able to attend. Next, last but not least, is the Transportation Day at the Capitol. Will be March 7th from 9:30 in the morning to 2:30 in the Best Western Capitol Ridge in St. Paul. If anybody is interested in attending that training, please feel free to reach out and we would be more than happy to register you.
Okay, thank you.
For-
And we'll move on to communications, maintenance department update. Mr. Weckworth, welcome.
This is, now it's on.
Now it's on.
There we go. Good evening. I guess this is probably my shortest update so far that I have for you. Me and Mike have pretty much been keeping busy snow plowing, keeping up with all these little pesty snows and trying to keep downtown cleaned up. Even at the smaller snow falls, it's good to get that cleaned up. Otherwise, it gets all hardened and turned into rough travel and difficult walking across the streets. We've only had 2 events where we had to call in Miller's and Sons trucks so far. So it's been a lot of just me and Mike removing downtown snow with our dump truck and our blower. Other than that, trying to keep some good ice on the skating rink. Keep the skaters with some good ice there. And we've had some shop upkeep, working on some equipment, getting things repaired for next spring. Keeping our snow equipment up to speed. Looking forward, we have some tree ordering to do for our DNR grant. And I've just done a real preliminary count for some areas that I know we've discussed already about where to put trees. I have up to 70 plus trees already that we could order and put trees in our boulevards and a few in our parks yet. I know we got a meeting coming up with the Shade Tree Committee to discuss how to move forward with volunteer events because we have to prove that we've had volunteer events for these tree plantings to get reimbursed for the trees that we buy.
So when will you be ordering those are the trees that go into the gravel bed?
Yep, yeah, gravel bed trees,
And
bare root trees
Bare
we
root
order.
trees? So
Yep.
you'll be ordering them pretty soon, or?
As soon as possible. Yeah, I've already made the call to Bailey's Nurseries, is where we've been purchasing them from the last few years. They have up to 6 desirable trees that, in my mind, I think are desirable for our town. Available yet? Something we can discuss in our shade tree committee when that's coming up. I think within the next week or so.
I was just gonna check right now to see when that date is, but yeah, we through a DNR grant, we have a considerable amount of, money. The grant continues through July of 2019, so we've got money available to spend. Like Kirby indicated, a big part of it is trying to involve the public in different tree activities, so we're going to try and brainstorm, put together a comprehensive plan for the next year and a half, so then we'll have kind of a long-range plan on how to do that.
Okay.
Other than that, there's been some street lights, just like the last few years we've been experiencing, they don't work. When it reaches a certain temperature, typically below 20 degrees, there's always a handful of street lights that don't work. And I'll go and check them after we get a warm spell, and they're back on. So, people remain patient with that. That's what is causing that. Yeah, that's kind of
About it, huh?
what's going on right now.
Okay, any questions for Kirby? Guess not.
I'll say a nice job on the streets.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've been,
Thanks.
my neighborhood has been plowed the best it's ever been in the 17 years I've lived there.
It's good to hear.
That comes from my wife.
Okay. That's
So,
good to hear.
Very, very
Oh, good.
pleased with what you guys
Good,
do.
yeah,
Kirby, I noticed, the parking lot by the movie theater, there seems to be some snowbirds that haven't moved in a while.
there are snowbirds, you're right. And me and Chief John Pedersen have earlier on had discussed how we want to handle that. It's probably something we should revisit. I guess we've been patient so far, is the way to put it. People want to be stuck in snow, then they'll be stuck in snow. We try to clean up behind them, but
I think there's a few cars down by Jerry's Foods too that don't move very often.
there's a couple,
Yeah,
yeah.
2 white ones to be specific.
Yep. And if we see them moved later on in the week after the snowfall, we try to sneak in there and move it. But
Okay.
there can always be further discussion on that, I guess. How to
Yep,
handle that. There can always be further discussion on that as to how to handle that too, I guess. But
Have you used any flyers yet in I suppose the people don't come down and look at the cars anyhow, so they wouldn't see what kind of a note you put on them, but any,
I thought they had done flyers
Okay.
earlier this year before the snow was flying,
yeah,
He and
if
I
I'm
talked,
recalling right.
the chief and I talked about it, and he's got a yellow half sheet, one side English, the other side Spanish, that he leaves on every vehicle
okay.
as a warning.
So these that are currently snowed in that haven't been moved, they should have gotten,
Oh, they did get a warning.
yeah. But if they, like I say, if they don't move their car, that means they're not going down there enough probably to see the note,
Or they
So-
don't care.
Or they throw
That
it
could
away.
be.
or they throw it away.
There's
Or
indifference.
they saw the
you know.
Spanish side and couldn't read it, they didn't turn it over.
I will say I am surprised at how many vehicles come down from their apartment. People come down from their apartments and move their cars for us to move at
Good.
4 in the morning, even when it's not a 2-inch snowfall, and we're just out to clean up an inch, and, a quarter snowfall, and it's just me and Mike out there. We've had quite a few people being respectful and coming down
Good.
and moving so we can clean.
Well, the word is getting to
So-
them
The
then.
chief and I had a discussion, we were gonna bring it next time, I think, and discuss it with there's some wording that's hard to understand.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, Ross. There are some words that are hard to understand in chapter 6, which deals with parking, with the snow parking.
Yeah, I've been thinking that chapter needs to be reworked. That one was particularly difficult. There were a lot of different ordinances that had to meld together, over the years. So it ended up being a little awkward. Yeah.
And I think I'm, as far as being the maintenance supervisor, I feel a little unclear as to how do we want to put it? Staunch, for lack of a better word, we want to be on the ordinance. So if from up on high it comes down to me that we want to move those vehicles no matter what, in keeping with the ordinance, I guess I would like that clarification. I mean, and probably Chief John too, but
Yeah.
I mean, I guess from my standpoint, I don't think there's been complaints to them that we're not removing the snow, which would be awkward because they're not moving their cars.
They're
But,
not moving the cars.
I mean,
Move the snow.
there's been no.
2-foot drift there don't bother me, you don't back
Either
out.
way, we're trying to get a lot of other things done as well, so I guess we haven't been bothering with it, but
Okay.
it can always be tougher if that's what's wanted to. So,
Okay.
Thanks, Kirby.
Thank you, Kirby.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Kirby.
All right, item B, December year-end financial reports.
Included in your packet was expense revenue budget, the end of the year summary. Basically went through and outlined where we are in terms of revenues and expenditures in each of the different accounts. Are there any specific questions that council members have of the individual budgets? Otherwise, I would be happy to, I don't know that you want me to go in this much detail, but I could certainly go through and tell you where some of the bigger ones. Obviously, one of the bigger accounts is the general fund, which contains a number of departments, planning and zoning, police, as well as administration. Overall, for the most part, we came pretty much within budget on a lot of different department expenses. Some items came up a little bit higher, but if you would like, what I can certainly do, I didn't have time today, but I can write up a more generic summary for you, letting you know maybe what did account for some of the increases or some of the decreases in those various line item budgets. So if that's something the council would be interested in, I'd be happy to get that completed and put that on the next council agenda for you to help understand why we were over in some areas, obviously under in other areas. So
Council, did you want that
any
further summary, further clarification? Or should Administrator Melvin spend his time elsewhere?
I know, there's a lot of numbers. I think it's kinda hard to follow sometimes unless you're on it all the time, and, what were you thinking on, putting together some kind of a summary?
Yeah, just a brief summary, reviewing the funds, and then if there's any if it's an insignificant difference, I probably wouldn't point out anything, but if there is a difference, if you look at, for instance, the police budget, you know, some of that's the result of staffing, while yet at the same time, they may have had higher overtime expenses. So I would take the time to, I've gone through and I've kind of identified what some of those things are. I'm just taking a look right now at the community center fund. Basically, we came in under budget for that, and one of the things that changed significantly were the rental revenues. They went from 35,000 that we estimated down to 26,000, but obviously we made up for it in other areas. So it would be just pointing out some of those things.
I would like to
If you would
see
like.
that if you had some time, Mr. Melvin.
Yep, I will make time for it, if the council wishes.
Yeah, just,
Sounds fine. Any other comments regarding the financial report? Hearing none, we will move on to item A under reports, fire and ambulance service coverage.
The first item there, the recap of the January 25th, 2018 fire and ambulance presentation. I did have the opportunity to get together with individuals from the townships. At that time, we did present some information on what was happening in terms of those fees. At that meeting, there were some questions that came up, and I had asked for an opportunity to verify those numbers. I'm in the process right now of finalizing that, and we'll have that done tomorrow, at which time I plan to send a copy out to the clerks from each township, as well as the city, basically notifying them what the service fee is, and then also they had some additional questions, as well as a request was made to calculate an estimated amount for what a possible tanker truck would be. So I will be getting that information out tomorrow, and I would like to have to be able to present that to you at this next upcoming council meeting. So
Okay.
a few details left to iron out.
Okay, so we just covered which one here?
B and C.
A, B, and C, all three of them.
Actually, if we could do A, B, correct, A, B, and C.
Okay.
We do have John here to
All right.
present his.
John, you have the yearly fire department update? Good evening, John. Oh,
For 2018, the officers have stayed the same, so there's no changes for there from 2017. Calls, we were up one call from 2017 from 2016. When you do the math here, you're gonna see it comes up to 38, but if you flip the page, our calls are considered when we're paged out, so you have to take into account the mutual aids we've given to other towns, so that gives us the 42. Moving ahead to the projected capital improvements, we did get approved to buy a new 2018 brush rig, which hasn't come in yet. I stopped at Brown Motors this afternoon before I came here. Truck was ordered on 5/16 of 17. We knew there'd be a delay because of the paint. Right now, General Motors is doing a track on where the truck is. Tomorrow, I'm supposed to have an answer from General Motors where our truck is.
so it's misplaced at this point.
can you use,
I don't know how to explain it, other than General Motors is tracking the truck right now.
Wow.
I don't know how you misplace a one-ton pickup, but
All right.
So I'm hoping it arrives any day and it's just sitting in some parking lot somewhere waiting for a carrier to pick it up and bring it here. But other than that, I don't know what to tell you about that truck. One thing you'll notice on the year replacement is the 1990 tanker. Originally I had that scheduled to be replaced in 2020. On paper I'm moving it up a year to 2019. And the reason I want to do this is typically when we get a truck approved, we order it and stuff. So if you approve the 2020 tanker, you'd approve it. It takes us about six to 8 months, depending on the truck. Sometimes it takes us a year to plan the truck. By the time we order the truck and it's put into production, that's another 6 months. So when we get the truck, it's actually a year old. So I'd like to start planning for a 2020 tanker, but what we do is we plan for it in 2019. We buy a 2020 chassis in the fall of 2019, and we take possession of the truck in 2020. And the reason for doing that, when we do our ISO ratings for the city, it makes a big difference when our year of our trucks are. Well, if we come out swinging a year behind, like our last engine, that 2014, we got the truck, but it was a year old when we got it. So your lead engine in that case has to be replaced every 15 years. So we lost 1 year on that truck just because of how we purchased this. So I'd like to, with that tanker, on paper, move it up to 2019, that we schedule it, we buy it, actually becomes a 2020 truck. It's paid for in 2020, but we actually ordered in 2019. So all the financing and stuff would roll over to 2020. I presented this to the townships and they thought I actually had went ahead and purchased a tanker already, and I said no. So they're actually asked for preliminary numbers for a tanker, and they're going to budget already in their 2019 for the 2020 tanker. So they already have the money for the brush rig. They're just waiting for Pat to send the invoice for the truck. So that's the biggest thing on the projected. And another reason for moving that tanker up, that's also the truck that we've had the frame fixed 3 times on it. And this past year, we had to decommission the truck as a truck for fighting fires because the pump is shot on the truck and it needs $10,000 worth of repairs. And they can't guarantee it at $10,000. So I chose not to recommission the truck, and it's strictly a tanker now. And with this new tanker, the thought is that this particular truck has a PTO pump, which, for those of you who don't know, that runs off the transmission and you can drive the truck and pump. We put like a Honda pony pump like we did on our last tanker, which would be like a 20-horse standalone gas engine with a pump. So if the pump goes, you take it out and you just go buy a different gas pump and stick it in. You don't have to rebuild half the truck. One thing I'd like to do though is the truck that we're going to replace is a 2,000 gallon. I'd like to increase that to probably a 3,000. Because if you look at our fire district, we're covering all the way up to almost 15 to past 8. It's 103 sections. If we can eliminate a half a trip or 1 trip, you know, when we bought that last truck, we went from a 2,000 to a 3,500. Well, you start making trips out to like Rush River, 1 less trip. That's big for our rural residents. And it also, when we did that with that truck, that did a significant difference on their insurance for their fire district. Just like the engine did for the city of Arlington going to a 1750 pumper. And calling 2 manufacturers, they told me there wasn't a significant difference from a 2,000 gallon to a 3,000. If we wanted to go bigger, then you start talking chassis size bigger and everything else. When we get more into detail, truck we'll look at, you know, are they talking 5,000 or are they talking 55,000, you know. If it's, we're talking a small amount of money, then it's going to be something I'm going to have to present to the council, do you wanna spend an extra 10,000 and go to a 3,500 or 4,000 gallon? But if they're talking 55,000, I don't think I could come to you and say it's worth the extra 55,000 to go to a 4,000 gallon tanker. But again, that would be up to you guys if you wanted to. So that's pretty much where we're at for the capital improvements. Just an update, we got a couple grants this past year for thermal imaging camera, and the Arlington Relief picked up the remaining cost of that. We do have some private donations already for that brush rig that we haven't received yet. But we have money sitting there from private individuals already towards that truck, and the relief will be kicking in towards that truck too. Any questions, concerns?
How's the recruitment going?
We are
Retention.
27 strong. The sign-on bonus didn't help us at all. Kind of figured that once, but we're at 27. We're the biggest department in the county, so feel pretty good about that.
What's your ideal number? What do you want?
Ideal 30, but typically since I've been on, and I've been on 26 years, we run 25, 26 consistently.
So,
We've been as high as 31 for 6 months, and we had 7 retire.
so 27 is not bad.
No,
I don't wanna speak for you, but I don't know if it's necessarily the number, it's the age maybe? Try to get some more new.
our department is getting to be a senior department. I'm considered one of the old guys, 26 years on. We have probably 12, 15 after this year that will have over 20 years on.
Arlington's not the Lone Ranger in this deal.
No.
Last week when we went down to the League of Minnesota, do you remember they brought up one of the speakers about
Oh, yeah.
people today, every municipality having a hard time getting younger volunteers. The people, they're trying to figure out ways to make this happen because younger people just are not giving their time anymore.
Right.
They just don't.
One of our towns that we do a lot of mutual aids with was down to as low as 14. They actually started going door to door, and they got 4 new members, but they're 18 years old. They don't know if they're going to stick around, but they got 4 people. I feel pretty good about us right now. You know, we have another town close by that they don't have anybody around during the day, so Gaylord's picking up a lot of their daytime calls.
Tough deal.
But, you know, right now our department's pretty strong. There's probably in the next year, I would say 2 that are gonna retire. They were gonna retire a year ago, and then when the city did their incentives, decided to stick it out a
Helped a
couple
little
more
bit.
years.
Just don't have any more birthdays, John.
That's not good either.
What if you told the younger people you could put out fires with iPads and cell phones with just pushing a button? You think that would recruit?
That isn't so far-fetched. They do have fire trucks now that you can run with a toggle switch and kind of like you're sitting at home playing with a
Playing the game.
Xbox or
Xbox or whatever that
PlayStation.
are all remote control. So it isn't that far down the road.
Or
That doesn't do much good though on a medical or a car accident,
No.
or if you have to do a rescue in a house. But it's a commitment right now. For a new firefighter, you're talking 200 hours of training plus another 48 for first responder. That's just to get on the department. Now, we give you 2 years for firefighter and 3 years for the first responder, and we train a minimum of 18 times a year. That's a minimum. Usually we're about 24, somewhere in there. So we do more training than anybody in the county too, but you know, I'd rather have the guys know what they're doing at a scene than to run around with their head cut off. And I think they appreciate that when they get to a scene. You know, when you guys approved the 2014 engine, we pretty much copied our 98 truck, and since then, we've been equipping the truck the same. So you go to the left side of the truck, the halogen's on the left side, you go to the right side, the hose. The compartments are set up the same, the thermal imaging camera is the same place. We're trying to make the trucks mirrors so that if we tell you to go to the truck, if it isn't on the one truck, somebody's already got it, you go to the other truck, it's the same spot. And that's really made a difference for the young guys, because, you know, when I got on kind of old school, you were expected to go up there all the time, go through the trucks, learn the trucks. Nobody wants to make that commitment anymore. They'll show up when the pager goes off, they'll show up for training, but they're not gonna take their Saturdays or nights or whatever and go through the truck and learn where everything is. So you try to make everything as easy as you can, you know, and that's something with this tanker, we'd wanna set it up as close as we could to our other tanker too, that the reel would be on the same side, the hoses would be on the same side. The easier you can make it, the makes life easier, especially when you look at this year, you know, for medicals and mutual aids, 42 calls. It's not that many years ago we were running 80 calls. That could change, you know, we're already at 8 for this year. So.
Okay, any questions for John?
Are the troops happy?
That's kind of a loaded question, Jim.
The
Besides
answer-
myself, there's 26 members.
The
Now, if
answer
you
is
can-
yes, they are.
If you can get 26 people to agree on everything,
You're a miracle, man.
I would say for the most part they're very happy.
Good.
And they're very appreciative of what the council has done for them for incentives and stuff. Otherwise, I think we'd have probably had a mass retirement here in the last couple of years. With the waters kind of settled down, and like I said, I only know of a couple guys that are talking about retiring, and you know, they're getting up there in age, so that's, I think, more of a reason for them retiring than they don't want to do it anymore.
Good. We want to keep the guys happy.
And gals.
When the
we
whistle
have
goes
3
off, we
gals.
want them
Three
to come.
girls or ladies.
Any more interest from anybody outside the, I guess, the area since we extended that?
Well, we got Josh to rejoin, and since Josh has got on, I think every Wednesday since I gave him his turnout gear back, we've had a call. Guys have actually given him a hard time, they're gonna vote him off the department because we've been going on so many calls since he came back. We did have, handed out 6 applications. I actually had some applications picked up from firefighters from other departments that are kind of close by, so I don't know if that will materialize or not, but there's been interest. I had a husband and wife just recently ask for applications.
Cool.
I think a lot of them are waiting to see, you know, we always advertise in spring that we, you know, you ever think about being a firefighter, come train with us? I think a lot of them are kind of waiting for spring to come and see what it's like to train with us. Hopefully you get 1 or 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I'd like to come here and say, I have 4 applicants, I'd like to put them on, go one over our 30.
Get it.
All right, thanks, Chief
Thank you.
Sass.
Thank you, John.
Thanks,
Keep
John.
up the good work. All right, no ordinances this evening. We have some resolutions. Resolution 14-2018, amending the 2018 fee schedule, and that would be for fire rates.
As was included in your packet, this was an oversight that occurred at the end of the year. There are some changes that Chief John Zaski wanted made. That includes the charge for an accident or missing person. That is going from the current $150 for each additional hour to $200 per hour. And I will just quickly scroll down here to and Jaws of Life are changing from the current charge of $150 an hour to $200 an hour. So those are the two changes that are being proposed. I would ask that you make this retroactive to January 1st, 2018 for ease of billing purposes.
I'll introduce resolution 14 -2018. A resolution amending the 2018 fee schedule for the fire rates retro to 1/1/2018.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Hattlestead, introducing resolution 14-2018, amending the 2018 fee schedule for fire rates, and that would be retroactive to January 1. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call. Councilmember Yashewski.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes.
Councilmember Cowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Hattlestead.
Yes.
All in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. Resolution B, which is number 15-2018, approve changes for Ridgeview Sibley Medical Center bylaws.
I received an email from Jenny Forcier, and the Ridgeview Sibley Medical Board had met. In the course of their meeting, they came up with some proposed changes to the bylaws. Included in your packet was a copy of the total bylaws, as well as a one-page summary outlining what the proposed changes are for 2008. They have to do with the section 4.5 regular meetings of the board, as well as section 6.2 nominating committee, as well as the credentials committee. So changes to those various areas of the bylaws are required to be approved by the Arlington City Council as outlined in their bylaws.
So as a recap, they wanna not have as many meetings per year, 10 down to quarterly,
Correct.
from almost once a month to quarterly. The other thing is that they're not, they don't have to have a council member on their board, a City of Arlington council member on our board, if I'm reading this right.
No.
It's basically switching from having a voting board member to having two people be voting board members that were appointed by the board chairperson.
I'm not exactly sure. I don't have it in front of me right now.
To me, it looks like that it's taking away from the, having a city-appointed, council member on that committee. That's how I read it.
That's not intent, because I'm the city member.
You wanna read that and then that change for us? That's what I'm gathering from that. You want help getting there? Oops, sorry.
Well, they're talking about a city ex officio non-voting member, so it'd still be on the board, but wouldn't vote.
But I don't have a,
Right
Well, they're
now,
taking
that's
that
what it
away.
is now, but they're taking
No.
that away, right?
no, that was,
That's the change, this, let's see,
I thought it was the other way around. Oh, okay.
that's to read,
read, oh,
so
okay.
that's the change, this is the part of the change that they're, and it's gonna read like this.
Oh, okay.
That's how it is like right
I saw
now?
the word change, I thought that's a new one, okay.
No.
Yeah, well,
Did I Is that how I'm reading it, or am I
Yeah.
reading it wrong?
The city ex officio non-voting member is being dropped from the nominating committee.
From the nominating
From the
committee.
nominating-
So what's the,
Oh, okay, so
So
that's
what's
not
the
from the whole
nom-
board, but that's
oh,
for,
just,
for nominating
Member.
positions for new board members.
That would just be the committee off of the,
Nominating committee.
Off of
so it's not
off
taking
of the
away,
hospital board.
it's not taking away that position
No.
on their board? Okay,
They just won't serve on the nominating committee or
all right.
from this point forward. Okay,
Now,
Thanks for that clarification.
here it says, the city ex officio non-voting member of the board. That's it.
That's for the
Oh,
nominating committee, I guess, is all. It's not for the whole committee. And the nominating committee does what?
Find new board members when one is either served their term or, in this, the last board member we had to recruit for was one that had moved to Arizona on retirement.
Okay.
okay, any other questions about the resolution?
I'll introduce Resolution 15, 2018 to approve the changes to the Ridgeview Sibley Medical Center bylaws.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Batchor introduced resolution 15-2018. It was seconded by Councilmember Hattlestead. And the resolution is approving amendments to the corporate bylaws of the Ridgeview Sibley Medical Center. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, vote by roll call. Councilmember Cowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Yashewski.
I'm gonna abstain right now.
Councilmember Hattlestead.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes.
Okay, 4 in favor, 1 abstention, none against. The resolution is passed. Next is resolution 16-2018, authorize submittal of a grant request to the amount, in the amount of $4,734.80.
This is a request that is being submitted by Amy Newsom, EDA Director, seeking funding to assist with conducting a housing study. As you may recall, at one point the city was considering going into a cooperative agreement with several other communities to put together a housing study, and then decided that it wanted more control over the focus of the study. With that in mind, we have submitted, or Amy would like to go ahead and submit a request to Compeer asking for funding assistance to do that.
And that looks like it would cover the whole cost of the project?
I believe it'll be very close.
Very close.
What she's proposing to do is to work with Bob Streeter, who's got some students who are currently at Humphrey Institute, working with them. And this will be very close to covering that full cost, yes.
Great.
So there would be no cost, well, a minimal cost for the city?
Yeah.
Correct.
There hasn't even been an agreement to do a housing study. This grant, they're looking for that approval to get that grant. Because if we get that grant, receive that grant, yes, that should all but cover the fees. I mean, you know, it could be $700 a month. That's unknown.
That's nothing, though.
Right.
But
compared
it's
to-
been, yes, that should cover almost all of it.
Well,
Okay.
it says that we're requesting 4734 in grant funds to complete our housing study. The city of Arlington will provide an in-kind match for this project. 25 hours time for Administrator Patrick Melvin. At $50 an hour would be $1,250. 100 hours from EDA Director at $40 an hour, for a total of in-kind contribution of $52.50.
Right, so there will be some expense, but it'll be in.
It'll be time.
Internal
Time.
time.
It'll be time.
Yeah.
which is like a
I
match.
just want to make, that we do have some costs involved. It isn't gonna be,
Staff time is what you're saying,
Staff time will
staff
be
time.
involved.
yeah.
Right.
Yes, we're really not gonna be paying other people, it's staff time.
you want another people.
Well, not outside the city of Arlington.
Yes,
Yeah.
Well, not outside of what we normally are paying them.
yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
You will not incur additional costs.
Just be a little more for the EDA, because I'm sure she'll have more time than,
Yeah.
that's pretty minimal, so, yeah.
I'll introduce resolution 16-2018, authorizing submittal of a grant request in the amount of $47.34.80.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Batchor introduced resolution 16-2018, authorizing the submittal of grant request for the amount of $4,734.80. That would go towards a housing study, and that was duly seconded by Councilmember Hattlestead. Any further discussion?
Just one question. What do we hope to accomplish by the housing study? What is a end game?
Those of you on EDA, can you answer the question? I know that's talked about and answered consistently at EDA meetings. Why are we doing this?
I had the same question. So, but I guess at the end of the day, if we want anybody to come in here and build or to come in here and do anything, they need a housing study done so that potentially we could get funds, or we could share that information with builders so that they'd have the needs on file or in a study.
Is this something that the lending institution
It's-
would want
it's
to have
mainly a
if they come
funding
in
tool.
to build 50 houses or 5 houses
Yeah.
or?
It'll also tell you if you need 5 houses or 2 apartment buildings, or what the community needs.
Right.
I think it's imperative for funding, basically, no matter what the type of building is.
Okay. Well, I would hope that, when it's done and finalized, that we utilize it and make sure it's available, not get put on a shelf in Pat's office someplace and forgotten about.
And I
That
think,
would be up to us.
Right.
I think they
And
get
Amy
stale, they
also.
get stale after a while, after maybe 8 to 10 years, you have to do another one because demographics have changed and needs have changed, so.
I'm gonna remember that when I'm on the council these from 10 years.
10 years from now, you'll bring that up, won't you?
I think what we would do is we would put it out there on the internet. And it would be, just like I had indicated that we received a call from a developer, considering this area. We would provide that information to them, which would then help guide them, and I think they would be more responsive to considering a community with a recent housing study compared to one that had a 10-year-old housing study to better guide them.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Okay, resolution 16-2018 then is ready for vote. Is there more comments, questions? If not, vote by roll call. Councilmember Hattlestead.
Yes.
Councilmember Yashewski.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Cowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes,
All in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. Resolution 17-2018, providing for redemption and prepayment for a portion of the general obligation permanent improvement revolving fund bonds, Series 2009B.
The city is fortunate in that we currently have approximately 95,000 in that account that could be the result of individuals choosing to pay those assessments up front. And in being fortunate, we would like to go ahead and make an additional payment, reduce the interest that we're having to pay. So upon recommendation of Shannon Sweeney, I would encourage you to vote in favor of making this additional payment and lowering the interest that the city will incur.
I'll introduce resolution 17-2018, 17-2018, providing for the redemption and prepayment of a portion of the general obligation permanent improvement revolving fund bonds, Series 2009B.
Second.
Resolution 17-2018 was introduced by Councilmember Cowell, second by Councilmember Highland. That is Resolution 17-2018, providing for redemption and prepayment of portion of the general obligation permanent improvement revolving fund bonds, Series 2009B. Is there any further questions? If not, vote by roll call. Councilmember Highland.
Yes, if Shannon Sweeney said we should do it, I vote yes.
Councilmember Yashewski.
Yes.
Councilmember Hattlestead.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cowell.
Yes.
All in favor, none opposed. Resolution 17-2018 is adopted. Item number 10, under unfinished business, approve or deny request for Economic Development Director for the city to contribute up to a maximum of $1,000 towards the Marketing Hometown America Initiative.
Council members, this is a program that I believe Amy Newsom has shared with you previously. Basically what it is it's an experiment that was done, I believe, was it in South Dakota? They worked on trying to make more rural cities advertising, working on different things to kind of build up their ability to market themselves. The University of Minnesota has basically reviewed this and finds it to be a very helpful program for cities, and with that said, is making it available for an estimated cost of about $1,700. Amy Newsom will be approaching the EDA, the Chamber, Arlington Industries, hopefully obtaining some funding from each so that it can be something that Arlington works on. What she is asking for from the city is that we agree to fund up to a maximum of $1,000. She believes the dollar amount is going to be significantly less than that, but would like to offer this program and work on developing some marketing tools for the city of Arlington. Are there any questions about the program that I can answer?
I think this was presented at an EDA meeting probably,
Couple weeks ago, couple meetings ago.
yeah, a number of months ago, I think. It seems like that long. By a young fellow from University of Minnesota. Very impressive.
Tom, do you remember what EDA recommended?
EDA, if I'm not mistaken, recommended to go ahead with it. I'm about 90% sure. But I think, yeah, it was a month ago or better.
It was longer than that.
That was quite a while ago.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the request from the EDA director for the city to contribute a maximum of $1,000 towards the Marketing Hometown America Initiative.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Cowell to approve the request from Economic Development Director for the city to contribute up to a maximum of $1,000 towards the Marketing Hometown America Initiative. Is there any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. New business, item 11, approve or deny membership to the Minnesota Valley Council of Governments at a cost of approximately $5,300.
Council members, I was asked to put this on the agenda by Laura Elvebach, and have taken the time to review it. Although I know I'm kind of in the learning curve at this point, still getting acquainted with some of the different aspects of the city. I do have a meeting coming up this next week with the League of Minnesota Cities, which I believe offers somewhat similar services to what this Minnesota Valley Council of Government operates. So, I thought I would bring this up. I would see if you had any questions, about it, but I would, ask for more time to learn more about the League of Minnesota Cities resources and see if maybe 6 months down the road, something like this will truly benefit us, or if it's duplication.
Is there no fee with the League of Minnesota Cities, I would assume?
I believe there is a fee that we pay,
Okay.
each year, but it's nothing above and beyond what we've been paying each year to belong to the League of Minnesota Cities.
So what we pay to belong to the league would cover that, there's no additional fee is what I'm asking.
Correct, we don't pay any additional fee to the League of Minnesota Cities. for
So we
their
could possibly
services.
get the same services done without spending the $5,300.
I think we do get the same services, Tom.
Yeah, I read that over, it looks very,
Yeah.
Pretty similar.
quite similar things to the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Minnesota Valley Council of Governments maybe does more, like you can ask them, will you put together this policy for me? They'll actually sit down and put together a policy for you. Whereas I think the league is much more, here's the resources,
Direction.
yeah, gives you guidance,
Okay.
but actually doesn't do the work, and maybe that this group would, I don't
Well,
know the answer
yeah.
to that, so.
So that we can slide into, new business at a future meeting?
Should I make a motion to table the membership in Minnesota Valley Council of Governments?
I think you
That
just did.
Second.
Councilmember Batcher moves to table the decision on the Minnesota Valley Council of Government request. And a second by Councilmember Highland. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. All right, item 12, approve or deny purchase of a 72-inch zero-turn mower from Arnold's out of Glencoe for Parks Department.
This is something that Kirby has had on the capital improvement plan for some time. He obtained quotes from Arnold's, as well as more recently obtained a quote
Lano.
from Lano. Price came in the same. Kirby has been working with Arnold's or the city has been working with Arnold's for quite a few years in terms of equipment, maintenance, different things like that. So the recommendation from Kirby at this time is to go ahead with Arnold's at a cost of $12,300.
I'd like to make a motion to approve purchase of a 72-inch zero-turn mower from Arnold's out of Glencoe for the Parks Department with funding coming out from the CIP account.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Hattlestead to approve the purchase of a 72-inch zero-turn mower from Arnold's out of Blanco for a Parks Department with funding coming from the CIP account. Is there further discussion? I just have one question, Kirby, was there a trade-in, or is there a trade-in also going to Arnold's? I don't,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it
on
the-
the bottom.
is it there? Oh, it's on the bottom. Oh, sure, got it, yep, 7,000.
That's 2011.
It's back there?
Yeah.
It's the same size.
Can you see that?
Okay, I got it, yeah, didn't see it at first. All right. And
Sorry, I
that's,
didn't even see Kirby in the audience there, though.
He's
I
like-
would have turned it over to you, I didn't see out there.
2011.
is that strictly to be used for the parks, nothing for cemetery, nothing coming out of cemetery or anything like that?
No, it'll be for both. The funding will be split between parks and cemetery.
Cemetery.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. Okay. All right. Motion's on the table. Any further questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Item 13, approve or deny planning committee recommendation to formally designate an alley easement for all public to use in Fairview Park for approving the building permit requested for 707 Chandler, Resolution 18-2018.
So basically, we had several committees take a look at this, this permit request to build an accessory structure with access through the Fairview Park. The issue is that this has not been a public alleyway in the past, and it does provide access to a number of homes on Chandler. The recommendation that came from the Parks Committee was to go ahead and to approve the request. It went to Planning. Planning said if you do approve the request, what really should be done is that you should be making that alley a public area so that others can have equal access to that. Is that, in a nutshell, is that accurate, Ross? or did
Yes. When this came to me, I had a vague recollection of some prior activity out there. There has always been a kind of a unimproved driveway on the south edge of the park. There was never a planted alleyway there. It's just, you know, a driveway into the parkland. More recently, with the hospital improvements, as you know, we created a parking lot, which it's technically a city parking lot. It primarily services hospital staff, but people utilizing the park, of course, have the right to park there and do so. And the driveway into that parking lot is kind of the front part of that access, but it stops, you know, right there. And beyond that, it's kind of unimproved. I don't know if there's some gravel there, or, you know, for part of it. And years ago, someone petitioned to be allowed to build a garage on the other end, next to the fairgrounds. And I think the research indicated that they were given a permit to do so, but only if they would access from the street. And somehow that didn't happen. So it appears that they have been, you know, primarily accessing their garage across this informal, you know, park driveway. But I think research also indicated the city does not maintain that and doesn't plow it, but
They do.
At the Parks meeting said that they do.
They do plow it.
Yeah.
He
They
said
do
he's
plow
been
it?
plowing it ever since his
Perfect.
birthday. Yep.
oh,
It is
okay.
gravel
Okay.
continuously to the.
Okay. Well, I was told that the city wasn't plowing it, so I don't know where that
Yep, no,
information
he's-
came from.
He was definite in that he was plowing it.
Okay, well, I guess it does raise a question why we've been plowing it, because it's not an alleyway. But I guess, you know, with a second request now for another garage to be accessed from that, I guess my suggestion to the city staff was, well, it's time for planning and zoning to take a look at this and bring a recommendation to the city council. Because it's been something that kind of has been in a gray area for a long time. However, if there is going to be, let's say if the city decides to approve this as an access for another garage, I don't think we can continue it just as an informal, yeah, you can drive over the parkland. You know, it's not good, okay? And so either we turn down the request, or if we approve the request, I think it's time to declare that an alleyway. Now, going back past city policies, you can have what's called an unimproved alleyway. In other words, just because we declare it an alleyway doesn't mean it has to be, you know, paved or made into concrete. We have many alleyways around town that are not. And some alleyways we don't even plow, at least in my recollection. And so those are called unimproved, unmaintained alleyways. And so I guess there's a couple of issues there. Well, first of all, you know, do we allow the building permit? But if we allow the building permit, you know, do we then give them access, you know, from that back area? And if we do, then should we be declaring this an alleyway? And if we declare it an alleyway, what kind of alleyway? You know, is it gonna be an improved alleyway, city maintained? Is it gonna be unimproved, city maintained? Or is it be unimproved, unmaintained? So, I presume that clarifies things for everybody.
It does, totally.
Yeah.
I got it. Can I ask,
Sure.
how often were you
Would you come
planning
up to the
on,
microphone, please?
I already know this, you were in another meeting, and you answered it for me, but I'd like everybody to hear. How often do you plan on accessing that
Well, my
garage?
primary goal would be just to, I have a couple of classic cars I'd like to store there and my boat. I don't plan on using it on a daily basis, 1 to 2, 3 times a week at most.
And that'd be, I would guess mostly in the summer.
Yes.
So if for whatever reason Kirby doesn't get there to plow it, it probably isn't the end of the world.
It doesn't bother me none.
Right.
That's, I have no problems with that.
Okay.
I'm not asking the city to maintain it or do anything with it, really, just.
Let you use it.
Allow you to use it.
Correct.
The garage is down at 713, which is further down. Is that used on a regular basis?
I
or-
believe so, yes.
So they're using that already.
Right.
They're using it daily even in the wintertime.
Possibility, yeah, I believe so.
Which means somebody apparently talked the city into plowing that at some point.
Yeah.
But that's kind of lost in the mists of time, how that happened. Because again, I think what we came up with from city records was they were given a permit to build that, but only if it was accessed from the city streets.
That's the way it was.
And they were
Sketched
gonna,
out.
yep, and they were gonna, yep.
Now-
Now they're coming in from this.
Yeah.
Little different.
But, to complicate it further, this is city parkland, you know, which the citizens have access to. And I think that traveled area was created for people to access the parkland. And so, you know, in a way, we can't tell a city taxpayer you can't drive across that.
Well, I
You know,
think,
so the whole thing was, you know, kind of muddy. It should have been resolved a long time ago.
well,
So,
it was only like 20, 30 feet up into that park where there was like a hard compacted gravel type surface.
mhm.
And then the rest was grass. And that's how it was for many, many years until that garage got built. And I don't know if it's gravel that goes all the way back to that back garage.
It is.
Who brought that in?
Yeah.
If it was property owners or who it was. Because I know it never was like that before. So
It's-
if it's created gravel by property owners, do we go ahead and make it an alleyway? I wanna give them access, they already got access, they need access. So what's gonna make more sense for the city to be able to either, number one, maintain it, or number two, the other thing is that in our policies, don't we have the residents are supposed to like fix if they rut up the alley, in an unimproved alley or anything like that?
If there's anything like
Is there anything like that in there?
No. And that's created some controversy occasionally. For example, in my old neighborhood, which is now the mayor's neighborhood,
It's nice grass back there.
yes, it's a platted city alleyway, but it's never been improved. And the property owners over the years have just, you know, seeded into the grass and cut the grass, so it's a nice grass area. Every occasionally, a utility truck or somebody will come through there and, you know, put ruts in the nice grass area. And that makes you know, in those situations, on those kinds of blocks, it creates a little irritation, you know, for the adjoining property owners, but technically speaking, it's still a city right-of-way. And we don't really have a policy that says, oh, well, it's a city right-of-way, but if you wanna, you know, put it in grass and cut the grass, you know, if somebody drives back there and ruts it up, you know, well, then the city's gonna fix it. Or the private property owners are supposed to fix it, or the utility company that puts the ruts in there is supposed to fix it. No.
It is a
we're
gray
just-
area.
It's gray, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, well, it is and it isn't. I mean, it's clear cut that if it's an unimproved alleyway, it's still an alleyway. So city and its utility companies or subcontractors have a right to access it. In the meantime, in all those periods of time where nobody's accessing it, you know, the city kind of encourages the adjoining owners to adopt it, so to speak. Keep it clean, you know, and if it's appropriate, you know, put it in grass and then cut that grass. And so, yeah. And we've got, I've never really done a, you know, a real detailed survey, but we probably have at least half a dozen different variations of alleyways in town. You know, from everywhere from, you know, fully paved and fully city plowed and maintained to, no, you know, grass strip.
I believe that the alley back there right now, I mean, it's pavement up until the corner of my lot, and then it's gravel to the west there. I don't think it would take much more than a load of gravel to make it nice again. I mean, there's, like I said, it is gravel, it's got some potholes and stuff, so a load of gravel would go a long ways towards making that whichever alley you guys decide to label it as.
Well, I imagine in plowing who plows the hospital lot? The city doesn't do that.
I don't know.
Well, that's our lot.
I think
The
the
parking
city
lot,
does.
that's city.
It's
I think the
our
city
lot.
Do it,
does.
or does Hagemiller do it?
What's that?
It's
I
a
know
city
Hagen
lot.
Millers do the hospital, the front parking
But how
lot.
about the parking lot in back?
See, that's city
That's a
parking lot.
park, that's a parking lot. That's the park.
But there may have been some agreement with the hospital to do it,
There
since it's hospital staff that, I'd say it's completely hospital staff that uses it in the winter.
Yeah. Yep.
You know,
But Kirby
so,
does do the alley now.
yeah.
I think did they do it last year also?
So he says he's been doing it
He said he's
since
been doing it ever since he's been here.
Yeah, he always assumed it
Last
was
couple
an
of
alley.
years,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
He's doing that now.
Right. What I'm thinking is if they was gonna plow that parking lot, it'd just be as easy to make a run down to the end of the alleyway.
That's what he does.
And then plow the rest
Yeah.
of the lot.
That's
I'm
what
guessing
it
that's
is.
what I don't know that for a fact, but I'm
Yeah.
guessing that's what's happening.
I
Do you
know
know if he plows a lot,
Kirby, I don't know for sure who does that.
I know he made the comment, he just assumes that was a way for park personnel, maintenance personnel to get to the back end of the park, you know, so that's why he's been plowing it, and the use by the residents on the other side is sort of incidental as far as he was concerned. But,
So, Attorney Arneson, how involved would be, I mean, I'd like to see the guy get his garage and get access too, I mean, we're already plowing it, so we have no additional costs there, I don't know if it needs a little gravel where the maintenance works in. But how involved would it be to change the policy on that alley?
Well, it's not it's more of a real estate step. Again, there is no alley there, so the city would have to declare it an alleyway. And I don't know that we would need a survey. We could just say, for example, the south 16.5 feet of
Yeah.
you know, that parkland,
yeah.
which is, I think, a standard alley width. And I would have to research what we have to do exactly for that. I think it's just pass the ordinance and file it at the courthouse.
So it's pretty minimal.
So-
I think so. There may be a need for a public hearing as well, for adjoining property owners.
So the incurred costs would go where typically? Just to the city or to the property owners, or
Well,
how
to
would it?
declare it an alleyway would just be the city.
Okay,
If, let's say there was a request or a petition to improve the alley, then we get into our assessment policy.
okay.
Yeah, I personally would certainly hate to see any of the property owners have to pay for the use of that road, because a term of implied consent comes in mind here, where if you let it go for long enough
Yeah.
without saying anything or doing anything, all of a sudden you can't come back and say, well.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, that's, you know, the mistake was made quite a number of years ago, when that first garage was put there and access to it was not checked on. In other words, they started using that road, didn't put access in from Chandler as the sketch that they submitted said they would. And ever since, it's been used that way. So I wouldn't feel comfortable seeing any kind of cost by those landowners at this point. Like you said, if an improvement is requested somewhere along the line, that's a whole different story.
And that home did sell, so the individual who initially made the request
Is
and
no
was told
longer.
to come off
Yeah.
of Chandler, it sold, and now it's the
gone.
secondary
It's
individual.
Oh,
been
yeah,
sold,
second or
it's been
third
sold
maybe even.
a couple of times.
Couple
already.
times.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, it looks like the Park Commission and the Planning Commission thought that it was okay. And I guess I'd like to make a motion, you're Mr. Shower,
Correct,
right?
yeah.
That we grant Mr. Shower his building permit, and that the city council make a decision regarding, and that we would allow access
Two separate.
over the park property to
Yeah.
his garage, and that we direct the city attorney to draft and file appropriate alley easement documents.
I would second that.
Can you split your,
Yeah.
Let's do the,
You're
the
wrapping it all
recommendation?
into one.
Let's
You
do the
put it
build-
both into one, so I think the building permit is one separate thing, so you wanna take the building permit off of that motion?
would you do that?
Could you do that, please?
Only, only if we let him drive across the park property after 10 o'clock at night. Okay, I will take I'll separate the building permit from
Okay.
the access.
Let's deal with the building
We'll
permit
do the
first.
building permit first.
I think the way we've got on the agenda
Access
is
first?
the access first.
Access
because
first.
the planning and zoning
Correct.
Okay,
wanted to make sure that if we.
Yep, take
Yeah.
off the building permit.
Okay, we'll do the access then.
okay,
Whatever you wanna do, we'll do that. That we grant Mr. Shower access to his property over the south side of the Fairview Park.
I'll
Can,
second that also.
well,
well, just
I'd
lay
like,
down.
I'd like to clarify, you're designating an alley easement, the south, how many feet of the park property?
Well, a typical alleyway is 16 and a half feet. I guess we can make it any width we want.
Approximately the,
Okay, I'll amend it to that.
okay. Is there a
You got that, Mr.
resolution
Mayor?
here that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
2018.
sorry, my
Okay,
computer
I
died.
gotta get to the right page.
that's the building permit one. Okay, I guess I don't need-
2018.
Okay. Councilmember Highland introduced Resolution 18-2018, it was seconded by Councilmember Hattlestead, and that is to approve the Planning Committee recommendation to formally designate an alley easement for all public to use at Fairview Park for approving the building permit requested for if approving the building permit requested for 707 Chandler. Okay, doesn't need to get any more specific than that. That's the resolution. Okay, everyone's heard it. Any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call vote. Councilmember Hattlestead.
Yes.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes.
Councilmember Cowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Yashewski.
Yes.
And Councilmember Batchor.
Yes,
All in favor, none opposed, the resolution 18-2018 has been adopted. Now we'll move to resolution 19-2018.
I'll make a motion, I'll introduce, resolution 2018. To approve a building permit for a detached accessory structure for David Shower at 707 Chandler.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Batcher introduced Resolution 19-2018, and that would be to approve a planning committee recommendation to approve a building permit for a detached accessory structure with access through the Fairview Park for David Shower, 707 Chandler. It was seconded by Cowell. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call. Councilmember Yashewski.
Yes.
Councilmember Batcher.
Yes.
Councilmember Hattlestead.
Yes.
Councilmember Cowell.
Yes.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes.
All in favor? None opposed? The resolution is adopted.
Go.
Start building.
All right, thank you, council, I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
It wasn't easy, let me tell you.
Lot of meetings.
Good thing you
I
started
wanted to do
early.
it the right way, I didn't wanna
Well,
be like the neighbor there.
We appreciate that.
We appreciate it.
Very much appreciate it that you went at it the way you did.
Thanks.
All right, miscellaneous business, item 15, Experienced Elected Official Leadership Conference, Hattlestead, Yashewski, and Nagel. Somebody want to make comments on that?
Don't all talk at once. Jeez.
It was good. It was worth going to. Even the party in Ben's room till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my God. Woo-hoo.
Do you have Girl
Yes.
Scout cookies?
Especially with your wife watching, huh?
Well, we missed out.
Well, there were, the theme of the conference was communicating in crisis was one of the topics we had. It was basically communicating to our communities, to our staff, to our whoever, and they gave suggestions like save bad news for Fridays if you gotta.
Friday news though?
And messages should be clear, responsive, accurate, authentic. A lot of just good ideas on how to get yourself out of a tight squeeze sometimes with people, and being able to let go and don't let. I saw Liza work with an individual one time, and I felt steam coming out of my ears, and she just moved on. And it was just, there's a real technique to working with people, and they shared a lot of ideas with lots of people from different parts of the state.
A couple of the individuals that I was impressed with was Mayor of Granite Falls, who was appointed to the city council in 1979. And he's mayor now, but he's probably in his mid-60s, and just a wealth of knowledge of how to deal with certain situations, and he was fun to listen to. Got a chance to talk to him out in the hallway afterwards, and he was just as impressive face to face as he was up there on the stage. But and then also the mayor of Circle Pines, I think it was, who did come down here when we had a meeting in Gaylord.
Sure.
Bartholomew, I think his
All right.
name is, and he does a lot of mediation and negotiations and communication skills with the state of Minnesota, and he was very interesting too. One thing that he said is, if somebody comes in all hot and bothered about a topic, one of the techniques he uses is instead of thinking how am I gonna shut this guy up, he said, tell me more. He wants to find out he said generally it isn't what he's complaining about.
Right.
There's something more back there. If you keep digging for more information in a polite way, finally you'll find what's at the root of the problem. And then you can address that. And in the meantime, it cools everybody down. But he was very interesting. Some of the presenters are better than others, as always happens, but those are two that stood out. Tom, anything else?
No.
Okay,
Smile.
smile.
Enough for you, Ben.
Yeah.
All right, we have maintenance department update again. No, it's done already.
We already
In case
did
you
that.
missed,
Right,
in case
yeah.
you missed any of
Yeah,
his
we'll do
words
it
of
again.
wisdom on the first
Instant
time
replay.
around.
Where'd he go? He left.
We'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Hattlestead to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, motion is
Sorry, I
passed
wanna
at
be rude, but
8:11.
I've been here since 4.
It's been a long evening, hasn't it?
It's all part of the glorious position.
Yeah, woo!
A late supper.
If only we had some Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah,
Take some of the bar
you
box.
can, that is the good thing about it all.
They have some new flavors this
Just
year,
let
I've
me
noticed.
know.
Really?
There are some
They
new
got
flavors,
blue
yeah.
Flurry, something.
Oh, there's one,
They
uh,
got the lemon nummy ones.
But there's a chocolate one,
S'mores.
some more,
That-
that's
they have
that's
that